This is a really cool moment for me to be making a video because I'm like 38 weeks pregnant. I'm ready to go. We're ready to have this baby. Yeah, I think this video is like part vlog. My life is about to change in a big way. And it definitely changes how I think about the future and how I think about my goals. This isn't a typical kind of spring or kind of year. And this is kind of what my mind map for the year looks like. I've gotten so much out of doing this process for myself to really like focus in on the things that really matter. Hey, it's Sophia, and this is a video where you're gonna plan with me. It is December 2025, and we're getting ready for the new year. I thought I would just share some parts of my process. Maybe you want to do something alongside me. Perhaps it will inspire you. I'm going to be explaining what I'm doing as I go, so you'll hear a little bit about my planning process for the new year and how I make it just really feel good and natural, and it's something that really works for me. Technically, you can do this anytime. You don't have to do this at the new year, but the new year is always a time when we get really excited to think about what's coming forward. So I'll tell you how I do that. And if you're looking for something that's more like a step-by-step instructional video, I want to let you know that I have a bundle of videos where I teach you my complete digital organization system. So you can go check those out if you like the step by step, but we're not going to do that today. We're going to be just jumping in. I'm going to be telling you what I'm doing, and we're just going to do it together if you'd like to join me. So here's to that. This is a really cool moment for me to be making a video because I'm like 38 weeks pregnant, which is more than 8 months pregnant, 8.5. And basically, I'm ready to go. We're ready to have this baby. They're going to be coming soon. So, never again gonna make a video of me not being a mom in my whole life. So this is a very special moment, and my life is about to change in a big way. And it definitely changes how I think about the future and how I think about my goals. Also affects how I talk. So I feel like I'm running out of breath. So I have this big, big belly here. I'll show you. Big, big belly. So this might be kind of like part video, part blog, but big old belly. There's a whole human in there right now. Yeah, we're just really excited to meet him. And I mean, I feel like I've met him already because he's in my tummy and he kicks a lot. So I feel like he and I have met, but not really. We haven't really met. So I know many people have given me a lot of good energy and good vibes, and or even sent me like gifts and things like that. Anyway, it's a special moment. Yeah, I think this video is like part vlog. Like it's kind of me sharing about my life, but then I'm also going to show you as I do some work to get my thoughts down about the new year and kind of how I do that and how I'm sort of preparing myself mentally for this next chapter ahead. That's a really big deal. One thing I just want to say is that I have noticed even since the spring when I got pregnant that I quickly began to think about my life in an entirely different way. And I would pick up something that I wrote a couple months before about my ideas and my priorities and what was important to me to work on next. And a lot of it just didn't resonate anymore, So things even from just last year, and let alone things that I had been working on before that. And I've been a pretty consistent person. Like, I've had a business for 10 years that I've been working on, for instance, and there's just many things in life that they're very important, but I've kind of come to realize that in this season, some other things are more important, in becoming a mom. I'm gonna have to do the motherhood piece first and then see how other things fit in. I'm not saying that I don't care about them or I'm gonna drop the ball on them, but I can't stress myself out about the small things anymore. And some things are well, we'll see what happens. We'll see when I get around to it, It's just different. And there were many times this year where I had a to-do list set out for myself, goals set out for myself, and I just didn't really get as much done as I wanted to. And I had to let things go. And it kind of happened time after time where I was like, I'm not gonna have enough time to do this. I'm not gonna have enough time to do this. And just sort of accepting it to some degree and just really trying to focus on the absolute essential things at any point. And knowing that you don't know when you're gonna have a bad day in terms of physical health or energy health. Like you don't know what's going to happen. So you always have to be thinking about like how to use your time to the max now while you have it, because you can't bank on having it in the future. You don't know what's going to happen. So kind of entering that headspace. And I started entering that headspace like as soon as I became pregnant. As soon as I became pregnant this year around like March, April, I started having a lot of symptoms like feeling off, feeling low energy, feeling nauseous, feeling like weird, feeling brain fog, and I just was not able to function very well at all. I was kind of just writing out those 3 months, and I'm very lucky in that I wasn't like physically ill all the time, but it was enough to just discombobulate me completely, whereas just taking care of myself was really all I could do. So that was not what I thought was going to happen. Firstly, I didn't realize I was going to get pregnant so quickly, so I didn't control the timing of it. Although we had started trying, we were very lucky that it happened basically instantly, and I didn't have any problems conceiving. And I know many people don't have that experience, which is why I started when I did, which is kind of earlier than I might have chosen. But given my age was 37, that seems smart. So anyway, the plus side was that it did work, but the con was it worked super well, and then I was out of commission for 3 months. So I didn't get everything done that I had anticipated, and because I lost 3 months of time, and it all happened so much earlier than I had anticipated, I didn't get a lot of the things done that I wanted to do as a foundation for when I wouldn't be able to do things. And as a business owner, there were a lot of things that I wanted to do on a business level. Had to really let go of my attachment to some of those plans. And anytime I do that, it's kind of like a grief process. It's like I'm mad about it, I'm sad about it, I'm like, ah, no, like the people need the things I was gonna create for them, and disappointing, and but then I get through it, I get over it, I accept it. It's like the acceptance stage gets reached. But then, yeah, it happens again with another thing that I'm like, oh, that also is not going to happen. Or, oh, that's also not going to happen. There's just other things, you set goals, you try to reach them, and it doesn't always work out. But just holding that perspective of like, well, I'm creating a human being, and I'm taking care of my health, and the absolute minimum things are getting done, just focusing on what I can control. And I was able to get the things I need for my baby in my house. We got that done. There were a number of things that I was able to get through successfully. Obviously, nothing as large as what I had in mind, but you adjust. And so, what I'm going to do now is just sort of resume some work I've been doing. I have a practice of doing a lot of reflection because I find that it really grounds me and it really helps give me clarity on what to do next. Like clarity on what works for me, where to go from there. I'm definitely neurodivergent. I'm definitely very sensitive. I don't think I fit easily in a box where I can say, like, I am ADHD or I am XYZ. I think I'm just different and unique. And I'm not saying that to be like, I'm so great. I'm saying it like it's felt like kind of a handicap because I've had a desire to do things the right way. And it'll be so great to just like do what everyone else is doing, or just like let somebody else make all my decisions for me and just follow their system and stuff. And that just doesn't work for me. Time has passed. I have aged. I'm 38 years old, and I've learned that I can't just go with a crowd or give my power up to anyone else, even people I like, even people who mean well and love me. I can't do that because it never works. Like maybe it'll work like once, and then the next time it will really not work. And no, don't want to go through that over and over again. I've been there, tried it a lot. I bang my head against that wall a lot of times. So we learned that we need to spend a lot of time, we meaning me, I need to spend a lot of time getting grounded, listening to myself, listening to what I think and what I feel and what's right for me, and figure out a way that works for me, because just going with the crowd or what other people are doing or what someone else says works is just a distraction and a waste of time, mostly. You know, occasionally people can say something, I'll be like, that sparked something or that confirmed something, or I really resonate with that. Let's try that. But you know what I'm saying, that like I cannot rinse, copy, repeat anybody else's thing. And that's something I keep in mind, like as somebody who does coach others and help others, that I'm always really considering the fact that I could be wrong, and something I recommend, that they need to listen to themselves first and not just look to me as like all the answer girl. I think I figured a lot of stuff out, but we are all individuals. So I can't know the end all be all for other people. And just so you know, I hate getting advice from people because, again, I do feel like a lot of people come at it with like a presumption that like everybody wants to hear their advice, but some people don't. And some people find it really distracting and it can take them the wrong direction. So I try to be pretty careful about how I phrase stuff, like the words you should. Hate that phrase. Just FYI, please don't say that to me. You could say, have you considered, or hey, would you like some advice? Have you considered this? Something that works for me is this. And then just let it go. Let me hit it out of the sight if it doesn't work for me. Anyway, so I like to do my own thing. I have to do my own thing. And I like to look back. I find this is like one of the easiest places to start, is just to look back at what already happened, because it's so much easier for my brain to tangibly hold that information. And also, when I do that, I generally will be writing things and taking notes and doing things that like record my memories. And then that's a really great thing to have. That's a really great resource to have. It's just a really great memory to have. I just love that. And I love being able to actually learn from my experiences instead of just like repeat the same error over and over again. Many years I started to realize that like I'm not the best at remembering things like the way I felt yesterday. I can have like, let's say there was somebody who was really bothering me. I would be friends with them for years, even though they bothered me all the time, even though they were really making me upset. I would be like fighting for that friendship. And then, like, once I started writing things down and noticing the pattern of, like, girl, she just always makes you feel like crap. Just let her go. Just let it go. That was a huge wake-up call I needed, like, in my early 20s, that, like, I need to really keep track of what my feelings are because I'm not that great at remembering. And if I don't remember what I felt, I can just continue to repeat the same toxic stuff that makes me feel crappy. And that was a huge up level in my life, just writing things down and then rereading them after a time. So we do that now. We do that a lot. But, with time, it does become, it's kind of like a cycle, like a rhythm and a pattern and a habit that I get into, making sure I go back and kind of check in with everything. And so some of that I've already done. And so you won't see me do that today. But one thing I do is I keep a journal. Whoop. I have a journal, daily journal. I talked about it in my notebook ecosystem video. I keep a journal. I also have a digital second brain and a free app called Obsidian, and I love it. And this is where I feel like playing today. Well, ultimately is where I want to do some playing today, is more of like the digital space, because I'm feeling like I want to like look at the overview of things. So like this is more kind of like a daily where I'll go to write stuff when I just want to get pen to paper and kind of like process something or write something down. But I do also keep what's called a daily page in my Obsidian database. And in that daily page, I try to write down for every day. I try to write down a summary of what happened that day. And then there are some metrics I'm keeping track of. One is how often I'm spending on social media scrolling, because that generally tends to be bad for me. So try to keep track of how many hours a day I do that. And lately it has been like an hour a day, which is not great, but I've been trying to share about a few things before I go have a baby. So that's why I'm like in the world more. But I can't control what pops up in my algorithm, and a lot of it upsets me. And because the world is upsetting and the algorithm loves to show you upsetting things in the world. So anyway, I keep track of that number in there. And then I also keep track of what I call my optimism number, because if you've been following me, I've been trying to be more optimistic the last few years, and tracking it and noticing what influences that. Like, for instance, too much social media time can influence that. But tracking that number has given me a lot of clues that have helped me to ultimately raise that number so that I'm more optimistic generally. So, but I like to look at the trend of like during a week, what does that trend look like? How optimistic am I, over time? So that's something I review later. But I keep track of these little bits of information, and then every so often I sit down and I look at it all like en masse of like how did the last couple weeks go? And I write down notes about it, paper notes, pieces of paper. I just like to do that. So I kind of look at the digital information and I'm writing it down on a piece of paper. And I might kind of scroll through my journal as well, just to kind of remember what was going on certain days. It's possible I might have not written it in. And that helps me to process things. So kind of like a weekly or a monthly review, depending on when I get around to doing it. For this round, it was like I hadn't really done this in like 3 weeks. So I just did this yesterday where I sat down with everything and I answer a bunch of questions for myself, like what happened the last few weeks or week, whatever time period. What was my general mood? Third, what are those statistical numbers? And we do some averaging and figure out what the average was and what does the trend look like. Looks like my optimism number went up so that I'm like almost like an 8.3 out of 10 the last week, which is pretty darn good. A couple years ago, my average was like 5. I'm a 5 optimism. So I'm glad we moved from 5 to 8.3 is banging, I will say. And then, yeah, about an hour a day on social media, but though it started to dip down in the last week a little bit. And then I asked myself, when was it hard to be optimistic? And just sort of noticing the patterns of like, what were the things that really triggered me to feel crappy and like hopeless? And for you, you might have different emotions that like are the ones you don't want to be feeling. But for me, like I think like hopelessness and like not feeling optimistic at all about the future are things that I recognize that are like dangerous to my mental health and used to be kind of habitual. So we've gotten out of that, but we notice when we start to feel tinges of it again, it's just a part of life. It's never going to totally go away. So I just note that when was it hard? Moments of the time period that it was hard. And then 5, when was it easier to be optimistic? And those are like the things that kind of trigger the opposite. And then going with that, I'm kind of at the same time, I start also listing anything that might help specifically. What's cool about writing, on paper is that like you could have like one list on one page and one list on another, and you can kind of hop between them. So as I'm kind of generating these different questions, I can kind of hop between them because they kind of relate to each other, but are different. And then I also write myself like a letter of encouragement to whatever challenges I'm going through. Then I write down my intentions for the week ahead. So that's what I do for like a chunk of period of time. Like I said, I just did that yesterday. I was looking at the last 3 weeks, kind of this last little bump in my pregnancy journey. And now I'm like in the definitely a new stage of like baby could come any day. I don't think it's that likely the baby's gonna come like this week, but next weekend and after, I think it's gonna start to be very probable. Yeah, but I wouldn't say no to a baby coming now. It's just statistically only like 20% chance. But anyway, if you also want to be optimistic, by the way, I did make a program where I explained my whole process of how I went from being not optimistic really at all to being a lot more optimistic and thus motivated and energized and fired up about life and living. And not that I was, I don't know. But anyway, I feel a lot better and I wanted to share what worked for me. And I also made worksheets with the questions that I go through on a regular basis that really help me identify what makes me optimistic and not the ones I just shared. So if you want them all written down for you, you can go check out my optimism package. It's like some of it is like me kind of doing an instructional video and some of it is worksheets and things that you can print out and use. So if that sounds good, you can check that out. But I did that, so we don't need to do that together. But what I've decided is, you know what, this is a really special time. And I don't want to forget what happened. I don't want to put these little pieces of paper in my archive and put them on a shelf and like forget. And things are going to get really crazy soon with having a baby. So I've decided I would like to transcribe this. I would like to put it into my digital archive so that I always can, at the touch of a finger, like see what the heck I was thinking around now in my life. I think that might be really cool to look back on in a couple months or some things. And I also feel like there are some things that I want to try to get done this week that are written down here that would be good in the short term to have as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up on my phone an app that I use called Otter AI. I use this all the time. This is my favorite thing, to take something paper from my journal or my notes to make it digital by just reading it out loud. And that is way faster than typing. So I just pull up the app on my phone and I press the record button, and now it will transcribe everything that I'm saying. It makes an audio recording of it, but it also will put the words. I think this might be backwards for you to see, but it's got it here. If you're interested, I'll also put the link down below. You can get a lot of free time on it to just try it out or just to use regularly. If you don't use it that much, you can just stay on the free plan. I upgraded it because I use this so much. I find it super duper useful. And then I can just like copy the words and put them in my digital archive where I organize all my ideas and my thoughts and my notes and my journals and things on my computer so that I have them forever, and it's super easy to find stuff. So we're gonna do that. And so I'm gonna just mute myself and we'll put like some little music on. So if you want to do something else with me, if you want to go transcribe something from your notes or your journals right now with me, then go for it. But this is what we're going to do for the next part of this video as you join me for my planning process. What I do when I'm done transcribing something is I take a pen, I find the corner or whatever that piece of paper is. It could be my notebook or blue sleeve. And I put a check mark in the top right corner, and that lets me know that I have transcribed this and that has been completed. And that's like a system I've been using this last couple of years that I've been doing this. It's been just the last couple of years that I have been like transcribing anything. I never knew about it before. Maybe the technology wasn't as good before, but I like this app, the Otter one. The punctuation generally tends to be in the right place, whereas the free stuff that I've used on my phone doesn't work. It just will create like really long run-on sentences, but this I find is good and better understanding what I'm saying. So I have this now all done. I keep it in my ring-bound Commonplace book. Again, I talked about that in a couple videos, including my ecosystem one that I did about a month ago. But I'm going to hole punch it now. My handy dandy disc bound hole punch. I always call them ring bound. It's a disc bound. No, I said it like a million times in past videos the wrong way, but okay. So it creates these little mushrooms into, there we go. That is in there. And I recently like redid all my tabs. So, and I put a new picture in the front of it. I still kept the same quote, but it's now flowers. And it says, "We cannot become who we want by remaining what we are," which is a quote from Max Dupree. But that's really been inspiring me this year because I know that as someone becoming a mom, I'm going to go through a lot of change and I'm okay with it. I think the last few years I've been a lot more like, I don't know, willing to change. I think ever since my dad died in 2021, I've just like felt kind of different than before. Like my previous identity went up in flames, and it's been, a journey of kind of creating a new identity since then. Like that was the end of my chapter of being a child. I'm no longer anyone's child. Like both of the people who contributed to my DNA have now died. So nothing is more sobering and adults than doing that, and also handling estate matters for dead parents at 34. Super great. But the answer wasn't to create an identity that was like super fixed in place, but to like kind of take the old, let it burn down, put something new in its place. But like it wasn't so long ago that I'm like super attached to who I have become since. I think I have improved. I like who I am and who I've become since 21. It's a very different me. I grew my hair out from being a pixie cut to kind of show the world that I'm different now. I'm not so attached to this new self that I've created that I am super freaked out to experience more personal change. I have a feeling that this child and stepping into the role of mom is going to change me for the better. It's going to change me into who I am meant to become. And I'm good about it. I'm not scared that I'm going to change. I'm totally good with it. It's like a really good end result to it. So yeah, so that little quote reminds me every time I open up this book. This is where I keep all of my reviews of the past like weeks, months. I also do a seasonal review. I did one for the fall. I don't know that I'm gonna do one for the spring for a while because I don't know, we'll see. But kind of not trying to take on a ton of expectations. And I think that, this isn't a typical kind of spring or kind of year. But anyway, so what I'm going to do next is now that I've transcribed my review, I'm going to put that notebook away and just focus on my digital world. So I was recording on my phone, but I can also pull up the Otter account that I have on my computer. It's all like connected. So then I can easily copy and paste the transcript from that into a new document. So that's what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start a new document. And so I'm going to go ahead and so I decided that it would be fun to show you a little bit inside of my personal Obsidian. This is like my second brain that I use. So on the right, there is a calendar. And if I go into this calendar, like each one of these little things is my daily note from that day where I kept notes that day, like I said, with the summary and the things like that. I have scrolled this down so you can't see my summary and you can't see all the things that I have for today, but you see a little bit of like my kind of like to-do list that is sort of rolling. Like this will roll to tomorrow if I don't do these and things like that. So on the right is kind of a weekly to-do list that I keep. I keep this sort of on the side with things that I don't necessarily need to do them right now, but I kind of want to keep an eye on it. This kind of just helps me like prioritize, like I can just resort the order of it and delete things off of there. And then when I do something, I move it over here. Like my husband just put together this chair that has a little bounce to it for when you want to bounce your baby. So I took it off of this list and put it over here. It's just something new I'm trying out. Whereas before I used to always have it in like a daily to-do list. But anyway, so what we're going to do is we're going to create a new document. Even though the review I did is like longer than a week, I'm going to go ahead and consider it like a weekly review. So I'm going to open up a new page that we're going to call weekly note. And we're going to create it. I just clicked on a spot on this calendar. Oops, my audio got deleted. Basically, I clicked on part of the calendar and it created this new document for the weekly review for this week. And is a chart that automatically generates as part of a template I use, where I can change a few things, and then all of the summaries for the week will show up in one place. But I'm not going to show that because there's a lot of private information on that. So we will just skip that for right now. Okay, so I have just copied it in here. When I first turned it on, I was talking to the camera and I was talking to y'all and I was telling you all about transcribing. And so it transcribed all of that. And so you can see that at the top here. I'm going to delete that and then I'm going to start to take the transcript that I actually want and give it a few little headers, the hashtag, and we will put like question one, like what happened in this time period, which is basically 3 weeks. And when I say that, it's like what events happened. And I then run through a bunch of events. And I don't want to show you because it's personal, but I will go through. And like I said, there were like 6 or 7 questions, 8 questions. And then I will put these headers kind of separating it so that at a glance I can find the section. So that is now going to be in here and like documented. This could also kind of count as a monthly review. And so, although it's not the end of the month, I'm going to just like note it. And this is what's really cool about Obsidian is that you can add connections like this. So basically, I don't think I have a document that's called this, but like if I ever were to start one, I would know that this is the material that I would want to get into for it. So I wanted to show you ultimately why I wanted to have this in here is that I have started to plan for the new year. So one of the things I really love about Obsidian is that not only can you create all these documents, all these connections, things, but I can show you in one place all of the relevant stuff for something I'm working on. So this is relevant stuff that I've been working on. It's sort of like part review and looking back. Just remember that's something that really helps me on the past year, and then finding the seeds for what's going to grow in the new year. So I've already used this particular part of Obsidian called Canvas, where it's like I can create like a mind map. I haven't added any arrows between things right now, but it's basically just like a way for me to add things. And so we will add that document here. So this is I feel like this is a really good like review of like what's been going on now at the end of the year. So I'm just gonna make a note. And to say what that was. And so like I included a document I did planning for this year, where I've kind of been thinking about my word of the year for 2026. I'm just kind of continue with what I had for 2025. I feel like all these things, listening to myself, protecting my peace, feeling my feelings, feeling my desires, feeling vitality, feeling aliveness, slowing down, being my own best friend, being present, all of those things are good things that I want to cling on to for dear life as I have a newborn infant. And if that's all I do, that'll be good. I have a letter to myself that I wrote way earlier about I always like to write a letter to read at New Year's, so that's ready to go. This is one I wrote earlier. This was a tarot reading that I did in September. And whenever it was, I was super wise. I had some really wise insights, and so I wanted to keep that. And I also did a tarot reading now in December for thoughts about the next chapter. So what I want to do now is again, I want to transcribe that and put that here. So that's what I'm going to do next. And then that will be an additional little card that I add to this map. And so it can be like one thing kind of leads to another. We can say like this is going to be maybe there's some other documents that I want to pull from that I've already created, like from the summer or from the fall, or when I'm thinking about motherhood and what does that mean, or general priorities like I really want to eat good food. I'm just sort of writing down things that I know are going to be important this year. Let's also say like rest. Like these are all going to be important things for 26 as a new mom. Let's say I want to make sure I keep that top of mind in the new year. So I also mentioned identity change. That's usually a huge part of being a new mom. I feel like with that, I also want to make a note about releasing expectations and what I call ungoaling, where you let go of goals. It's like very again, like I said, this is like a not typical year in terms of goal settings and stuff. So you might not resonate with this, but this is just sort of my place where I can just sort of brainstorm and just sort of write stuff down of like things that I think will be helpful when I want to get a sense of like what's going to happen. What's my direction having a baby, I'm going to have a newborn, and the next while is just going to be kind of just focused on this kind of stuff. But I might come back and I might need reminders, and when I do, I'll be ready to dig into things that I might find inspiring or uplifting or motivating, because it can be really hard to remember where I was when I'm really tired and grumpy and not feeling well. So this is something that's going to be a really good reminder of like my energy, my frequency, my me, and that'll be really good. I'm also going to take things out of this review I did that have to do with things I want to do this week, and I'm going to add it to this running list I have of stuff I need to do this week. And I can kind of move the order of them around so that I'll be loading up this little weekly to-do list with that. I will be going into my journal and I will be transcribing that tarot reading, but I don't think I'm going to do it today because that one transcription was exhausting to do this pregnant. Maybe it would even be easier to type it. I don't know. I'm just so pregnant that like talking actually is kind of hard. So we're gonna kind of end this video. I feel good with like what I accomplished. I feel good that review was done and I can put it away and know that like I can still like be looking at it on my computer. I feel good about this document for the new year and how it's coming along and kind of the clarity of things. I do want to add thing I did recently was letting go, letting go of the noise, letting go of like all the things, like even all these to-do lists and things, like whatever. I definitely need to put the car seat in the car. But other than that, we can probably get away with not doing anything else. I would like to finish my birth class, but there will be no one will die except for if there's no car seat. But just like, keep it in perspective of like going on most things is good. So like that's like the main thing I'd like to take away from everything. I think you can tell I'm just doing the best I can, being in a very weird, non-typical life moment. Very exciting, very different than many other people might be experiencing. I'm not making See, the thing is with me is if I make a bunch of goals and I'm like, I'll get to this in March, that's pressure that I don't need. Like, if I want to know what to do in March, when I'm ready to go and I'm like, hey, I'm beyond eating 3 square meals a day and getting enough sleep to function and keeping my baby alive. Like I have like graduated from that and I'm ready to like do some work on my businesses or something. The cool thing about me is that I have so many notes that I know exactly where I'm going to go, but I don't even want to put it on this mind map. I don't even want to link it because that's not what I need to think about right now or for the foreseeable future. I need to just focus on getting 3 square meals a day, keeping my baby alive, getting through giving birth, taking care of myself. And then when I'm ready, I actually have an entire notebook that's just dedicated to work stuff. I have notes at the bottom of this list on the right of things I want to do this week. I have a category that says things to do after the baby and stuff like that. And that's where I've been kind of throwing all of the things that are I know won't get done now. I know that won't get done now. I know won't get done next month. We gotta bookmark it later, but I have it out of sight. I know exactly where it is, but I have it out of sight. Just like all the things I don't want you to see because I'm my private person. So I also have to have boundaries with myself. I have to have boundaries with what I share with the world. I also have to have boundaries with what I share with myself and what I put in front of my brain. And that's what ungoaling is about, is that like I don't need lots of pressure and lots of goals that I don't have the bandwidth to pursue because those become expectations. Those become things that I beat myself up about. Those become mental spirals when I need to conserve my energy and only use them for a few things right now, especially once I have a newborn. So that's my thinking, is it's so easy for me to add goals in. The ungoaling is the thing, and the releasing and the letting go are the things that it takes a lot more energy for me to be able to do. So we're just gonna kind of play it simple. And this is kind of what my mind map for the year looks like. I think in my previous like peek into my behind the scenes for Obsidian, I've shown you a previous mind map that I've made of goals and stuff for the new year. And you can, if you look at that, you would see a much more complicated web of things because I wasn't planning to have a baby, so I could be shooting for the moon. And maybe that's where you are at. So you might resonate more with, a couple years ago me and what she has cooking. So I will link that video below, as well as all kinds of other stuff that I've created, including my classes, if you want to set this sort of thing up for yourself. I'm always all about trying to find your own way to do it. But if you want to know how I do it and sort of the process that I use to help other people figure out a way to use it, then you want to check those out because it's really affordable bundle of so many cool resources that you could get a lot out of. I know it's really helped me to be able to connect all of my things together, especially like having like a mind map like this is really helpful because like there's so many people who do like workshops on the new year, reviewing your year and setting goals, and you might have a couple different like journal entries that relate, or maybe you have some files that relate to certain projects, like a book or an article you want to finish or ideas for your business. Like you might have a lot of pieces that you can't look at all at the same time, but like in the mind map you can. And it doesn't have a finite like you can scroll to a new part of it and just add more stuff to it. And so it really helps, and you can move it around. You can also color them so that some things pop out more. Um, and it's just a super cool tool. I've gotten so much out of doing this process for myself to really like focus in on the things that really matter, like basically everything in here. These insights of this is really important to me, this is really a priority, this is really a value, something I need to invest my energy into making a reality in my life. These are things that came out of like time of reflecting and connecting and reviewing until I realized like this really matters. Like slowing down. Like I'm not a person who naturally has gone slow in my life. I have been a hustler and like a speed demon and does a million things at once girl, and it killed me and I had to stop. So I have to slow down and I don't like it, but it really works for me. So anyway, if you have enjoyed this rambly video, you should definitely subscribe to me because we must be like soul people, soul family or something. And I will try to pop in and make more videos. We will see when it happens. I do not know what life with a baby looks like. I don't know, but I do love creating. So I hope to be able to continue to create stuff, and we'll see what that looks like. You also might want to get on my email list because maybe making videos won't be super easy with a baby, but maybe writing will be easier. And I love to write. I have a blog, a website with like tons of stuff on it. And I like to write emails. I don't know how often I will be emailing, but I will put the link below that you can sign up to get them whenever they come out. So yeah, this it feels like goodbye, but it's kind of like goodbye to my old self because this is probably the last video I'm gonna make before I have a baby and everything is about to change. And I don't know what I'm walking into. This is just the unknown. So would love to stay in touch with everybody. Big hugs.